Hello and welcome to the Quiver channel. I'm not perfect. No one is. I've been through a lot in my life. I'm part of a university of experience that I never wanted. I got to watch the woman I loved more than anything in my life slowly die. I saw a lot of people die in hospital. I watched my mum slowly fade away to dementia. I have seen too much. My life really started to go downhill in 2019. But let's start at the beginning. I grew up in fairly middle class family. Me, my sister, my mum, my dad. Normal. Completely normal. I was not close to my dad. I wasn't close to my sister, really. I was close to my computers. I was close to my air rifles. I was close to the bike I took apart in the backyard. I was close to the computers at school. I was an oddity. I had friends that were girls, but I never really had girlfriends until I was 16. I had, I think, a girlfriend then, but I preferred my computers. I never went to the parties. They weren't interesting to me. I like to explore places alone. I like to go to old garages and abandoned houses and isolated old farms. Away from people. I liked machinery. I didn't like loud noise. I didn't like loud sounds. I didn't like anybody going in my bedroom. And I spent my youth trying to fit in. My brain was very analytical. People were odd to me. People lied. Even my friends at the local role-playing shop and computer shop that I spent so much of my time downstairs away from everywhere thought I was strange, and I was strange. I was exhausted much of the time because I tried so hard to fit in to a normal life. But my life really started when I was 26. When the only person really that I could be completely myself with, Paola, came into my life. We spent 18 years of the 20 years together inside the house. We never got bored, or we had arguments, of course, everybody has arguments, but we never felt as if we were trapped. We both love computers, but we both love technology. We both needed it. Paola, because of the cancer and the slowly degrading of her body, which meant going out was hard. Going out in the sun could be deadly because her skin was damaged by the full body radiation, and her body was falling apart anyway due to the acute lymphoblastic leukemia. And then when her kidneys failed, she couldn't go anywhere really too far because a lot of the time she was on dialysis, done from home. Not once in those 18 years, of the early 18 years, did I ever feel like I was trapped. Because at the very same time as her, with all the cancer and everything keeping her indoors, was my problems. I was finally allowed to be myself. I had found the one person I could just be, and it felt so. It was like I was imprisoned for the first years of my life, self-imposed prisons, trying to fit in with everything. So I spent all my time with Paola, indoors, together. The only times we left the house was when I was pushing Paola around in the wheelchair. I loved that wheelchair as much as Paola did. It was our adventure chair. It was a safe space. That wheelchair had a complete survival bag connected to it underneath. Literally, we could have stayed out of the house overnight. We had food, drink, ways of making a fire. We had everything. And this wasn't because Paola needed it. It was because she knew I needed it. It had like 4 different battery chargers in there with batteries and a solar panel that could fit on the back of the wheelchair. And we always took like 4 different tablets or something would be packed away in the base of. This is why it weighed so much, that one did. And it had big knobbly tires. When Paola died, and even now, even though we're 5 years, oh my God, 4, holy shit. 1, 2, 5, 6 years since Paola went. still, whenever I open my front door to go out, the very rare times I do, when I have to go to the hospital and we can't deal with it by just phone calls, my doctors are very good. They know about my problems, and most of the time, if I need to be talking to them, I can talk to them online and that. My doctor's receptionist is amazing. She'll organise the nurses to come out to give me blood tests at home and everything, so I don't have to leave the house. Every time I leave the house, my hands go in front of me like this, as if I'm pushing a wheelchair, even now. And I have to force myself to put my hands down by my side. And the problem is, of course, as soon as I've done that, I put my hands out in front of me to push Paola's wheelchair. Paola's wheelchair isn't there. Therefore, Paola's dead. You didn't cure her. You didn't manage to fix this. How could you say that you love her when you couldn't heal her, when you couldn't fix her illness? Those are the first levels of the triggers that start to hit me. In 2019, after Paola's death, after I had been in hospital, and here's the totally fucked up thing about me. When I was diagnosed with bowel cancer, I was relieved because I couldn't function, and hospital staff would be able to look after me for a little while. And I caused so much hassles. The day after I got out of surgery, and remember, we are talking surgery where I have a hole. They have cut a hole 29 centimeters all the way down from here, all the way down to past my belly button. I tried to leave the hospital 3 times during that day because I couldn't cope with being in the hospital. I remember lying on the bed in the first emergency ward after there, and I'm trying to convince the nurse and the staff nurse that I'm okay, that I want to get home, that I can't sleep in this place, that I keep seeing Paola and keep reliving Paola's death, and I can't be here. And and it was like a scene from Blair Witch, because I'm convincing them I'm okay. And they knew because they've seen me before. They knew what they knew. You see, my gastric system wasn't working at all. Yet it had all closed up and stopped working. And I was thirsty and had drank some water, so my stomach had filled up with water and whatever. But it wasn't going anywhere. And I'm just there saying, I just want to go home. I can't. Every time I close my eyes on this bed, I see my wife's death. I can't do it. I was totally freaking out. And I was trying to convince them I wanted to sign the forms to get out there. And then all of a sudden, my body decided, hey, we've got all this stuff in your stomach and it can't go down, so it's going to have to go somewhere. And all of a sudden, it was like projectile polishing of water, just like if you've ever watched the Blair Witch or the Exorcism, or something, not Blair Witch, it'll be Exorcism. The Exorcist film. So I messed my brain up with. And I was like, it was just coming out. It reached past the edge of the bed. It reached past the edge of the bed onto the floor of the ward. That's how. Because my body was just saying, okay, we've got liquid here, it can't go down, it's got to go somewhere. And it was just violently going to get rid of it all in the only way it knew how. And I had no idea. Oh. And then they tried to stick a tube down my nose, but they couldn't get it down, and it started bleeding. Not good. When I left hospital and got home, and they told me that the cancer was in remission, that they weren't going to put me on chemotherapy because there was 75% chance 75% chance that the cancer wouldn't come back soon. There was, but if I had chemotherapy, it would only raise that by another 3.5%, so 78% or so, around about, depending on percentages. And the problem is, I was tested genetically, as they do these days for chemotherapy, to find out that there's a very good chance I would get really, really bad side effects to the chemotherapy. So we decided that it wasn't worth it. I mean, seriously, one of the side effects of the actual type of chemotherapy that was needed to make sure it didn't go in my lungs and places like that was chemotherapy that would make it so the soles of my feet would fall off. No, they'd grow back, but no, not the thing that you want to hear. As far as side effects go, no. Didn't even know there was a side effect where the soles of your feet could fall off. But yeah. No, not going to happen. Not a good thing. So I get home and I actually was sad that the cancer hadn't come back, that I wasn't dying from it. That's how fucked up I was. But to put that in perspective, you've got to remember in 2019, well, end of 2018, beginning of 2019, every single day, I would see the death of my wife. This was the PTSD kicking in, the first stage of PTSD, the repeated PTSD. The shock is when your body latches onto an event or situation, and then different things trigger it. And so I went through 4 months of watching my wife die over and over. It would usually start when I walked into the ward. I'd relive it from that point. Every smell, every sound, every vision would play through in my head, and I would just be catatonic while it was going on. If this happened while I was outside the house, I would just fall down to the floor. And I would be basically non-functioning until it opened. And I would walk up. The nurse would be there at the door, and she'd say to me, you can go wait in the waiting room. We're trying to restart a heart. We're trying to work on her now. And I just ignored her, and I just walked straight past her towards Paola's room, went into her room and stood next to her while they were doing what they could do. And my brain was analysing everything, and I saw all these people in her room and think, it's not like it is on the TV shows, is it? My brain was detaching itself and analysing and seeing how things were going, and that she was, and I was calculating the percentage. Yeah, that's the fucking worst thing about it. My brain was fucking calculating the percentage. Do you know the worst part about my wife's illness? Acute lymphoblastic leukemia with Philadelphia chromosome positive, because within the first couple of months of finding out what it was, every time I left the hospital, I went to the library, to the medical section of the Hanley Library, the local library, and I would read the medical books, the hematology books, the books on studies and cancer and treatment. within 2 months, I knew how it would end for my wife. I knew what the damage was. I knew what had happened, and I had to have that information with me for all of that time, and it was horrible. Every time I looked at my wife, at my beautiful, amazing, strong, wonderful wife who fought every moment, I knew what was coming. I knew that the way the medication would work and the way the medication would damage her body. And as we went through it all, the ticks got ticked off on this form in my head of what was coming, and I knew we couldn't fix it. I did everything I could. When the diabetes came about, I tried my best and got her baseline out of that by creating a supplement, feeding a regime of food. And then when it near the end time, the last 2-3 years, when Paola's kidneys started failing, and that was because the medication had finally done a number on him, and therefore that's when I went a little crazy and tried to buy a boat and did a GoFundMe and said it all wrong and messed up that and that, but finally did get a boat that lasted 24 hours on the canals, but it was enough. Paola got to paint on the canals. That was good. And at the same time as dealing with all that, and that's the same when Paola's kidneys were thought to fail, I once again grabbed the medical books and learnt all about her kidney problems and dialysis and how bad it was going to be. So I knew again, I couldn't stop myself finding out. And then when her heart got damaged, I read up on it at night before sleep so I could know what was going on, even though I knew that knowing wouldn't help, that I couldn't fix it, that I couldn't cure her, that I couldn't fix her heart. But knowing the percentages, knowing what was going to happen, know that the chance of coming back if she had a cardiac arrest was not good. And then before this, my mum, of course, was diagnosed with early onset dementia, and I started reading up on that. And that's the worst thing, knowing all this knowledge and not being able to get rid of it ever again. And it's there, it's stuck in place, and I watch as these people I love slowly go away and fade, and I can't fix it. And then after Paola died, everything fell apart. My brain deconstructed itself completely. My doctors saw it happening. They couldn't stop it. They wanted to. The clinical psychologist tried to help. Couldn't stop it. The therapist tried to stop it. I've always said that this is about the time when Samaritans started to call me to check if I was still alive, to check if I was still around. They can do that if you're in a really bad position. They can actually ring you up and check on you and make sure you're okay. You have to agree to it. You have to agree to give them your phone number and allow them to contact you so that they can check up on you. And then you got to see, at this point in time, I was seeing my wife die. I was seeing that entire event, sometimes 10 times a day. This was January and February of 2019. I was reliving it. And it isn't about wanting to die. It isn't about wanting to end it all. It's about not having left anything left in the tank to fight. There isn't anything left. No joy. Everything was grey. By January, the end of January, and this is one of the symptoms you don't hear about, but it's part of what's called a manic depression. This was before we knew I had bipolar type 2. But basically, all the colour drains out of the world. Everything goes black and white. You feel a complete disconnection to everything. You lose the ability to think any positive thought. You lose the ability to laugh. You lose the ability to dream. The only way I can describe it is my brain got to a point where I couldn't even imagine anything positive. I couldn't even dream or fantasize about anything positive. It was all gone. I literally couldn't even, nothing positive. My brain had no positive settings left at all. And so I formulated an end of line situation. You saw it all back then. The mistakes I made, I logged onto a lot Reddit and everything. Not just mistakes, but positive, which where all my karma came from Reddit. Yeah, I made sure that I wrote, with the help of a friend, a novel based on Paola and got it on Amazon at the cheapest possible price. I wanted it to be free, but I couldn't. There wasn't a free setting on it, so it had to be on the where it was something like $1 something, and 69% of it goes to. You can choose how much goes for tax depending on what you want to do with it. And 69% or something of it, so nothing went back to me on it, and so people could just have it basically for the cheapest possible. And I began to contact all of the different places that had helped Paola and me and said goodbye to them all. I was doing my end of line thing. I scanned in all Paola's pictures and got them up places. I put a last picture in the last picture and a picture of Paola in the pictures Reddit thread and that, because I wanted to be some thingy. At the time, Trevor was going to be looking after the dogs if anything happened to me. I saw no way out. At this point in time, all of my medical teams and my mental health teams were in crisis mode. They were ringing up and checking on me. They had double visits that I could go and see them, and that they signed me up for different courses and everything, but my brain was rebelling against it all because none of it made sense and none of it fit in with the core self, who I was, and things got worse and worse and worse. And then you all know the story of how one final doctor said to me, what's keeping you alive? Because you should be dead. Oh, I should be dead. And that's when we started using computers and technology. And we shut down all the others because they weren't helping. The medication was causing really bad side effects for me. The outside the house things were causing me so much problems. I was trying to re-engage my masking ability. There's videos back in 2019 where I spend the entire video playing games and crying at the same time, and I honestly didn't think I would ever smile for myself. I was driven by this idea that at least I can make a difference to someone else. I can make their day better. If I can't smile for myself, I can make someone else smile. And things settled, and then I was sent to another doctor there, and this is probably when they first started thinking about how bad things were for me, and they tried to push things in different directions, and it was like, wee, it's back boing. And so I carried on with this. I was very lucky because at the start, when Paola, before my mum got ill, we had collected 20 years of technology, supplemented by my mum, because my mum loved to look after us and do stuff for us. And so in 2022, I was struggling. I was really struggling. I was having trouble paying for food because the cost of living stuff was hitting hard, and I was still having to upgrade and keep all my technology stuff going because it was an ongoing process. I had to find new coping strategies all the time, new ways of doing it, new projects to work on, because the projects along the technology problems could help my brain focus for a few hours. So on and on we went with all this. The GERD problem because of my bowel cancer and my stomach, I started to get acid damage to my throat. And that was terrifying because we didn't know what it was, and I didn't know what it was, and I thought it was throat cancer. We thought it could be thyroid cancer, and all these things. Thankfully, it turned out not to be. It seemed about just a unique situation because of what happens when 40% of your intestine is removed. And then in early 2022 is when things went wrong. And it's all my fault. It's all my fault. And this is when I caused it. I screwed up. You see, I was contacted by a syndication media company who wanted to do a story on disabled people and how the cost of living was affecting them. I was blind. I was completely fucking blind. I thought, yeah, I'll get my voice. I was so naive. I should have known. But remember, I trust. I don't lie. I don't deceive. I only tell the truth. I can't help it. I just tell it all. If you look up Jason Alcock and cost of living and selling his dead wife's items to feed food and that, you will find a hack piece done by a company that was syndicated and sold on to like lots of different news sites. Because what happened to this, one of these media companies will send someone out and they'll do the story with you, or they'll do it on thing, and then once they've done the story, they will sell that story to the highest bidder, be it the local newspaper's website or the News Sentinel, or it could be to Sky News or bbc.co.uk and so on and so forth, and just grabs it. And then they pick and choose. They pick the pictures to go with it, and they choose the pictures and they take the pictures, and you don't have any kind of control of the story. You don't get to have any kind of editorial. It's out of your hands. You don't get paid for it. Well, I didn't. I did it because I wanted to just help some people. Yeah. And then the bad stuff happened. This is where the original harassment began. You see, if you go to any of these stories, the way they had put up there, and the way that I was completely blindsided and I reacted to it, was that I was the bad guy. How dare you be saying you don't have enough money to live on? When you're on disability, you're okay. I have to work. I can't have a valve index. I have to work. I can't have a laptop like that. I have to work. I can't do all these things. How can you do that? You need to sell all this stuff. What are you doing with your money if you can't pay your bills and live on that? What have you done with all that money? What are you spending it on? Are you buying yourself games all the time? Oh, I bet he leaves his house to go to town and thingy. Total dumpster fire. And once the story was out there was no way for me to write or get them to change it. What people didn't know was that the actual interview with the site was almost 2 hours worth of stuff, talking about how the people who were disabled don't have the same needs as people who are not disabled. What it didn't say about is the time that was so happy to talk about how every piece of technology on my desk, every piece of technology, every piece of VR, the VR headset had been donated by Valve, that most of the equipment that I had was second hand and been repurposed from stuff that me and Paola had and slowly built up over time, and that I'd fixed stuff was broken, that I'd been able to get stuff from parts sites and buying things that were broken from eBay cheaply and then fix them up myself. What they didn't know, didn't say anything about that, and how all these wonderful projects of rebuilding stuff from mice to keyboards to computers and doing stuff in VR, and how it was making it possible for me to live every day, that it was part of my actual medical treatment, and that it kept me going. But they missed all of that out because it wouldn't have made such a controversial piece. They didn't put any of that down. That is the origin story of these harassers. It wasn't just griefers who said that. Lots of normal people would read it and say, oh, look at him, he's got all this. I work and I can't have those kind of technologies. I work and I'd work, blah, blah, blah. I said basically one line about selling some of Paola's items that I had to be able to rebuild some of the disabled stuff so that I could use it. And I went through all the stuff explaining how that all of this technology and that was just the same as if someone needed a white stick because they were blind or needed a wheelchair. This was my crutch. This was my things that kept me going over the day. That without it, I was absolutely fucked. That without it, I would probably be in a secure unit and on medication by the end of the week. That every day, all of these things kept me going and still do. But no, none of that went into those stories. None of that was put out there. And do you know what happens? Do you know what happens if you ring up their places and you ask them to print a change to it? Well, this is what happens. The main story goes on the front page of the site. Gets all set up. Big words. Big headline. Massive headlines you'll see all over the internet from back in 2021 and 2022 explaining how bad it is, how thing is, and even when they convince you that if you do another story they'll make it all right and you trust them again. And then they keep saying, and everybody replies is, oh, he's on this much money because he's on disability. And how has he not got enough to live on? What's happening to his money? What's happening to money? Well, you know what? I explained all that back then. I explained all that to the actual people before they did the story, and they decided not to put it in because he... The year before Paola died, I ran up £12,000 of debt. We knew Paola was going to die. The treatments were failing. The damage to her heart was becoming more. She had a year to live at max. So I said, fuck it. I took out £12,000 of credit card. Remember, this was before the big issues where they stopped doing these kind of things. And I ended up with like £12,000 of debit card and short-term loan. And I used that money to give Paola the best last year of her life I could. We went to wildlife parks. We went to firing ranges together. We did so much in that last year. And you know what? I could have fucking rang up those companies. I could have cancelled that debt. But I didn't. Why didn't I? Because that money helped Paola to have a brilliant last year of her life, so I wanted to pay it off. So that is why my disability benefits and that didn't pay for food as much as they should in 2021. Because not one of these companies that I owed money to told me that I shouldn't be calculating my disability in with the actual full amount. Not one of them told me. So for another entire year, I was spent half of my disability and half of my benefit was going on paying these debts. Then when the person who was in this house trashed everything, so used up all my mum's money, and I had to move in here and take over, and I had nothing, that was when I ended up with an IVA, involuntary independent IVA agreement, the one that basically takes all your debts to one side and they calculate how much you can afford to pay. And that's when that happened, and that's when I got back a living amount of money, which is a bloody good job that I did, because that's the time when my mum's house, I had just moved in and there was nothing left, and there was no money to pay any bills. There was no money in my mum's account to pay any bills for the house to even start, and so I had to sell everything. Pretty much I had to just continue. That's what happened. That's what happened there. And of course we're here now after all the time, and the recompense of them giving the money back to me, of all the stuff I sold, so I could replace all the stuff that I had to get rid of. And that's where we are now. And during all these times since then, these hackers, these griefers, these harassers kept on trashing me, kept on low-level harassment, did that 7 hours of thingy trashing me, threatening to come to my house, threatening to go behind my house and climb into my window, to tie me up, to force me to eat my wife's ashes, and so on and so forth, and all towards what they're still doing today and now. I'm not perfect, I fuck up. I could be worse, I could be better. But I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to step down. I'm not going to stop looking after my friends. I'm not going to stop talking about disabilities. I'm not going to stop being me. I'm not going to stop using my vlogs to help me get what's in here out of the here every day, because I fucking well need it. I'm not going to stop talking about depression and that. And once my final diagnosis of autism comes out, damn right, I'm going to talk so much about autism and all the things and that, but I have no right to do that really until I have that full quantifiable thing. And the paradox is, the closer we come to that point in time, the less I am likely to talk about it until it's actually thingy, because I don't want to second guess anything. And just when we've started to get everything back together in the house, and everything's just a semblance of, not normality, but you know what I mean, that's when That is when these assholes, the griefers, tried to take me down. But the thing is this, and this is the simple truth. I've stared death in the face. I've watched loved ones die. I crucify myself every single day more than anybody, any harasser ever will. Oh, they don't help. And the fact that they've invaded my safe space is a step too far. I am not some shrinking violet. I've still got a fight left in me. And this is the hill I choose to stand on. So think of me what you will. I'm not perfect, nobody ever is. But I will not stop talking about the issues I face and trying to help other people. Because disabled people get trashed too much. And mine isn't the most important story, and mine isn't the worst story. There is far worse than me. Yes, there is disabled people who go out to work and want to go out to work. There's also disabled people who work would destroy them, would trash them. Any kind of work, even computer work, even home work, working from home, would turn this from a safe room into a, I've got to do this because if I don't do this, I can't pay my bills. If I can't pay my bills, then how can I sleep? If I can't sleep, how can I get up to do the stuff? How can I do all this? This is my safe space. It allows me to function every day. All I do, it allows me to function and continue to go one step at a time, doing all the things and always trying to think of something else, something that will help me. Because I'm always riding that edge of craziness, the edge of letting go, the edge of things going bad. And I'm always pulling back and I'm always fighting it and I'm always trying to do the right thing. Beep, beep. And I am lucky to have the technology I have here. But that technology has been bought with pain and suffering. This technology isn't a hobby. It keeps me going. It keeps me going every day. From AI to computers to Steam Decks to VR to retro stuff, it all helps me so that my brain doesn't go into very bad directions. And I don't smoke, and I don't drink, and I don't leave the house, and I don't have a car. And the only thing I don't buy myself expensive clothing or expensive shoes or expensive thingies. Money goes on safe space. One of the most relief and situation altering events was actually to do with the IVA when they set that up for me. And the person setting it up for me, following the government's guidelines, said, no. We've got to set aside, we first of all, we can't touch your disability money. That is not allowed to be touched because that is for your disability. So yes, if your computers or your help you with your disability, then that money can go on your computers and everything. Wow. The story so far. I doubt anybody's going to watch this till the end. Holy shit. I hope you're all having a wonderful night and day and evening and night and day and evening. I am worn out. Hey-o. Bye bye. I'm going to fall asleep soon. Yes, I am.